Hello and welcome to the first joint podcast from allthingsgerman.net and Pensionssprachschule.de. I'm on the Kupferhammer station in Oberursel. The train has just left. With me is Maria Schipli from Pensionssprachschule.de, and we're taking a walk today to the original Camp King site in the north end of Oberursel. Good morning.
Good morning. A rainy morning, that is?
A rainy morning. It's just started raining. We've walked down here and the rain just started. So the first thing we're going to do is leave the station. The station was rebuilt a couple of years ago, so we've actually got to cross the tracks to get out. Okay. Just cross the road. And we're now at the corner of the Eichwäldchenweg. So tell me, where are we? This is the edge of Camp King. This is how far Camp King went
right
towards Oberursel.
Well, we see here in this, I guess that would be the right-hand corner. We see some of the remaining buildings that are left. Altogether there are three that are still date back to the time of the American occupation. When did they move out? When did Camp King actually close?
Camp King closed, or the Americans left, around 1994, 95.
Okay, that's when the city of Oberursel bought this property, this former exclave, and I think they paid something like 27 million marks, which equals about 14 million.
Which 14 million euros.
Right. And then
which is approximately 20 million pounds.
Pounds? Wouldn't that be less?
Oh, less? It's the other way. You're right. It's the other way. About 10 million pounds.
Okay, yeah.
It's the other way. It's 10 million pounds. Yeah.
Or about $20 million. Maybe,
okay.
And let's see, what else do we have?
So what they've done is these buildings. This was originally part of the site that we're looking at.
Right.
And that was converted by the town. It was converted by the town of Oberursel into these flats, effectively.
Right. Flats and like a new German settlement.
Okay.
And they kept the old name, and they also kept some of the American names for the street names, like Elvis Presley Way, George Marshall Ring, and a couple of others.
Okay, and on the right-hand side, this is all original buildings. This wasn't cut, so we're effectively at the perimeter of Camp King.
Right.
At the moment. So we've just arrived at the Elvis Presley Way.
Shall we take a left?
We'll take left.
Okay.
And these buildings look newer.
The ones right in the center are new. That's a new shopping center with a pharmacy and a bank, and they built some townhouses around here. Supposedly very cheap and family friendly, but the prices are...
The prices aren't that cheap of those houses.
Basic house price was about 430,000 euros.
Oberursel isn't cheap in the first place for houses, and these ones are meant to be small for new families, and they are certainly the sort of price you pay other places here in the area for a large house.
Right. Yes, Oberursel has its own little bubble economy as far as the real estate is concerned.
And on the right-hand side, first we've got what looks like a generating station, a generating substation, at least, which is fairly much overgrown. Behind that, there's a very colourful building.
That's the new kindergarten, I believe, or is that...
That's the kindergarten.
That's the kindergarten, right?
That's the kindergarten where Sarah goes.
Okay, so you would know it, right?
I know it. I've been in it. That's a special kindergarten. They call it integrative, because the groups are mixed of disabled and able-bodied children.
Okay.
So each group has a set number or a small number of disabled children, and has a higher number of people looking after them then.
Okay, so I guess in the American terms we would call that mainstreaming the kids, I suppose. Where you
mix the children.
Right.
Yeah, that's the idea. That the children are mixed. There's no big difference.
My kids are older. I only know this place as the voting place. So
Yeah.
I've been here twice.
That's true. This is
done my
a
duty.
polling station as
Right.
well. Yeah. Okay, so we're walking towards the shops. So tell me, what was Camp King?
Originally, it was an agricultural school that was somehow started by the university in Frankfurt. And then during World War II, it was turned into what they call Dulag, which stands for Durchgangslager der Luftwaffe. It's kind of like a transit camp where they interrogated pilots or, allied...
Airmen.
Pardon?
Airmen.
Airmen, okay.
Yeah.
What's the difference in between an airman and a pilot?
The pilot flies the plane.
Okay, that's
The
only
airman is the
crew.
generic term for the rest of the crew.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's right. Okay, where they interrogated, bombed down airmen, and so there was a pretty famous place. It was, I guess, the most famous place of interrogation in all of Europe at that time. And they started off, I think, in 1942. They had about 30 interrogators. In 1945, they had upped it to like 65. And about 9,000 airmen came through here.
Okay.
Some were confined in solitary confinement up to 28 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they said that was the hardest thing. Nothing to see, nothing to do. And then after the war, it was taken over by the American military, and they changed it into a military intelligence camp.
So they basically kept the function.
They kept all the buildings and the functions. Of course, they added some new functions like, the bowling alley, the hospital, and all the things you need for a little military camp. But was pretty much kept the same. And one important thing to be noted is after the war, they interrogated Nazi criminals right here. So it's kind of strange to think that from my kitchen window, because I live right next to Camp King, I can look out the window and say, Goering was interrogated here.
Yeah, one of the things I was reading was that a lot of the paperwork for the Nuremberg trials was prepared here.
Okay.
So a lot of the interrogations, like you said, that took place here, actually led to a lot of the evidence given in the Nuremberg trials.
Right.
The main prosecutor was based in Oberursel beforehand. Okay, so we've passed around the corner, past the kindergarten, and this on the right-hand side looks like a school.
What's the name of the school?
That's where it gets interesting. This is a primary school.
Okay.
And until this year, it was called Camp King Grundschule. Camp King,
Yeah.
And they've decided to change their name into Grundschule am Eichwäldchen.
Why is that?
Well, the first thing is they say a German school should have a German name. So we've just been visited by a dog. A big dog.
Yeah, one to step back for.
So even though a lot of the roads here have got English names or American names, and even the area is known by this name, Camp King.
The bus station name is Camp King as well.
The bus station name is Camp King.
Yeah.
They've decided that they want a German name for a German school, and they've selected Am Eichwäldchen because that's exactly where they are. They are at this place called Eichwäldchen, the road, etc. The other reason they've said the teachers don't feel happy teaching primary school children the political history of Camp King. So the things we're talking about today, they say we can't do that with primary school children, and it makes it very difficult for the children then to identify with the name of the school. So that's the reasoning behind it.
Yeah, it's all a very modern settlement with that new school right here, these townhouses over there, and in front of us we see some half-timbered houses. They are still remaining from that time. Have they been renovated?
They've been, some as far as I know have been. It depends basically what's in them, what they're still used for. But before we get to those houses, we've got another school first.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what this one is?
No.
Okay, this is the Waldorfschule.
Ah, that's the Waldorfschule. Okay. Of course I've passed it, but...
So, Waldorf, very special way of educating. For those that don't know, they have a method, as far as I'm aware, what I was reading in Wikipedia, they have a method of teaching without using books.
Okay.
They don't like using textbooks. They do an awful lot with board work, coursework, whatever, but like I say, textbooks. Kindergarten children are just coming past.
Oh yeah.
In the background.
Some happy sounds.
So that's a very special type of schooling in Germany. Famous comments come from, I've heard famous people who went to Waldorfschule who later have been talking about literature, for example, and they say, I didn't have this, I don't know this book.
Oh yeah.
Now they just don't have the same culture as maybe another German school.
Right, they place values on different things, I guess.
Yeah.
Running around and building and creativity. I think, I'm not sure, but I think they also teach, when they do teach the major subjects, they teach them like in a block of 3 months.
Okay.
So like math
that
for
bit's
3
new to
months
me.
and German for 3 months and different timetables, so to speak.
Okay, what we've just passed this
Oh, that little creek here,
the creek. Okay, we'll call it the creek. This is actually older. This is older than the settlement.
Ah, yeah.
So this is actually something that went through in Camp King times, or even earlier. It actually goes up towards Rosengertchen. And as far as I'm aware, this almost the actual basis of this part of the land goes back to Roman times, because when they were building these houses, they had an archaeological dig on the site first, and were finding all sorts of broken pottery and stuff that's 2,000 years old or something like that. They were looking for other things. They were, I've forgotten what. I was reading about it. They were looking for a particular grave which was meant to be here somewhere, and couldn't find it. It's meant to be also sort of Saxon Queen or something. But certainly found all this pottery. They've been able to date this bit of the area, and that creek is actually back up to these Roman times.
It's a pretty looking house over there.
That's pretty. That's what we would call Fachwerkhäus. That's a timber-framed house.
Right.
But the timber's been painted, so the normal timber frame that I have as from English houses is literally the brown timber white
brown
plaster,
and white,
and this is sort of red and yellow, or red and cream. So the question is, what's it for? Do you know?
No.
No? Okay, I don't know either at this point.
It's a private residence.
It could be now. It's certainly one of the old buildings from Camp King. And it's this sort of area that were then used for officers, for some solitary confinement, and what we know later the Americans used for the defectors, that when later from the Russian side people were coming across using the German border, the inter-German border, they were keeping the prisoners here and gave them a better standard of living up here in the sort of countryside part of it, to encourage them to give out their information.
To encourage them to spill even more.
Exactly.
For a little bit of luxury. I mean, relative luxury.
Relative luxury.
Yeah, versus staying in barracks. Yeah, in my hometown actually, I mean, I grew up with American military as well, because we had 2 camps in my hometown, Schweinfurt, which is in northern Bavaria, and I mean, I grew up in the 60s, so I always saw these American soldiers coming through our little village in their tanks, and it always turned into quite a fair when they came through, because in the 60s, Americans were considered rich, the soldiers were, you know. Back then it was like the exchange rate was really good for them. So when they came through with the tanks, they would throw money to us German kids, and candy. And I remember holding my first MRE in my hand. I think that's like military ration something, ketchup out of a tube.
Okay.
That was really interesting. So, and yeah, we always celebrated when they came in, and we celebrated when they moved out again, because it was so noisy.
Okay, we're rounding the corner here at one of the older buildings that's left, which is basically closed, full of graffiti. I couldn't even say what it is, but there's a notice board on it. Petang-Club Oberursel. Ah, yeah.
That's that French game.
It's a French game, like boule, yeah.
Yeah, like boule, yeah. Right, that's a more familiar term.
Pool and Patang aren't the same thing.
They are.
They're not.
Oh, okay.
They're not. One of the things I learned in French was that they're not.
Shall we walk up this way, or over there's the Kinderhaus?
Let's go to the Kinderhaus.
That's a new institution here.
There's reasons for going to the Kinderhaus.
Yeah, I think that's where we'll find something interesting, which has been done by an artist. His name is Thomas Keltner, and well, we'll see and describe it for you.
So which is the Kinderhaus?
The Kinderhaus, I believe it's right here. Let's
Okay.
take a look at that sign. And here are the carvings,
Yeah,
I
the
believe.
carving. So I've walked past this so many times and never seen this.
I was here like maybe 6 or 7 years ago when the first people started moving in. They're kind of like an open house and, with lots of explanations. And I remember walking around here.
So this is something I've been waiting to see.
Yeah. This is why everything is reversed, like you had explained earlier, that method of...
Yep. The story goes that when Camp King was decided it was going to pull most of the buildings down and rebuild, the gymnasium hall had a very nice wooden floor, and this wooden floor was set to be removed. And so the artist came in. His name was?
Thomas Keltner.
That was the name. And carved in the floor pictures depicting the history of Camp King. The motto is "Don't look back." There's actually a sign here. I've seen the sign now. And he did this, and there was a big exhibition with all this floor. And then the town said, "Okay, this is so good, we can't just lose this, but we can't keep the floor either." So they made a concrete mould of the floor, which is what we're now standing on.
Right.
This is the picture, and we can actually see here, in the normal way round. What it looked like, normal impression, okay. Let's take a quick photo of that. And what we're standing on is then the reverse impression of these buildings. I think we're taking a photo. This is going to be very difficult. We'll take a portion of it.
Right.
Take the building with the POW on it. Let's see how that works out at home. So this is the bit I wanted to see.
I actually believe I was there the day they had that open house when this floor was still in the gymnasium.
In the gymnasium?
Yeah.
Okay, let's think about it. Yeah, it's 12 years ago.
12 years ago?
It must be about 1995.
Possibly. Yeah.
So what else is there up here? Is there anything? We know there's these houses up here.
I've always known this area as just officers' houses.
These are the officers' houses. Yeah. This is this part the officers' houses, and like I say, the defectors' houses. Now I've seen pictures of British and French officers, prisoners, officers, being taken for walks in the woods, and they obviously lived up here. And again, to motivate them to speak a bit more freely, the interrogation wasn't always the how should I put it, the traditional cliche room with a lamp.
Right.
They took them on walks, so they just take them for a walk in the woods here. There's so many woods here on the way out to Oberstetten, and would just chat with them and would hope in the course of these chats to get information.
Yeah. Some interrogations were done in a rather subtle way, using more of a psychological approach. And of course, I mean, I'm sure there was some torture too, but they were not that often, I believe. There was one famous interrogator, I think almost everybody loved him. His name was Hans Scharf. After the war, he moved into California, and somebody published a book about him called The Interrogator. And, describing his technique, I guess, in his book, and who he was and what he stood for. And he was actually almost well-liked by the inmates.
And I seem to remember he was very successful as well.
He was very successful, that's right.
They liked him and talked to him.
And he said sometimes he held these interrogations, but you could hardly hear him. You know, it was just sort of atypical. from what we hear. And I did talk to a friend of mine the other day, and she said, yeah, when about 30 years ago, her then boyfriend used to bring her here to take her to the movies. So, but she had to show her passport, of course, because you're stepping on American soil at that time. And yeah, they visited the bowling alley and all these facilities they had.
I think we're going to have a loud background noise at the moment. Oh, it's going.
Well, I'm glad they are at work. Good for the economy. Very nice up here. Very German looking though.
The houses even the new houses are being built in a style that they actually look as if they fit in. They've got the, how should I say, old style type of windows, roofs and things, even if it's modern materials, which is completely different to what's on our left, which is basically new, modern.
It looks very 90s over here versus that style.
And what I think is even worse is the small houses at Camp King, which are basically blocks.
Right.
They're blocks with balconies.
Yeah, and not much greenery there, where back here it looks ingrown and nice big trees.
They have gardens going around the outside, whereas in Camp King the garden is basically a square at the back, which everybody can look into as they go to the shops.
That's true. Look at that nice stone walls. It really looks very quaint back here. And they're still working, as we hear.
Okay, before it gets too loud. Yeah, let's stop here. Let's not go around the corner.
All right, well, there's a sign too. Kind of in the movie side. So I guess that goes for us.
We'll turn around first. So we'll start walking back. One of the other interesting photos that I've seen is the Kupferhammer where we started at the train. There's a very nice photo, which I'll try and link to, which has the prisoners getting on the train to go to the next stop. So they've been here, they've been interrogated, they're going to the next stop. So the prisoners were obviously brought on the train to Oberursel and came up from the central station on the tram up to Kupferhammer and then walked across the road and into the site.
Oh, yeah.
And this is a fascinating picture to see of this old tram. And like I say, the station as it was 60 years ago, and the prisoners getting on this train.
Is that the same train line that was established in 1899?
That's the same train line.
Okay, coming out to the Hormark.
Going up to Hormark as a tram, electric tram, in the years we're talking about. And it's certainly fascinating when you've lived here and you've only ever seen the orange and green U-Bahns, to see these trams on the track and particularly how the stations looked that long ago. That's a topic for another podcast.
That's right.
Okay, so to finish off, tell me about the site. You've got a new homepage.
Oh yeah.
www.pension-sprachschule.de.
Right.
Spell that, Sprachschule.
Okay, that's SPRACHSCHULE.
Okay, if you're listening to this via Pension Sprachschule, you'll know that. If you're listening via allthingsgerman.net, you've now got the address. There's also a link on allthingsgerman.net on the blog on the right-hand side. And so what's the idea behind the homepage?
Okay, I decided to get that homepage, when was it, about 2 months ago, because I had so many inquiries for making teacher referrals. People would ask me if I could recommend a good teacher or a lot of...
For English?
Well, for any kind of language, actually, because they know, most people, well, my friends know that I study Italian, I study Korean, I speak English, I speak some French, so they know I'm a bit of a linguistic or want to be linguistic, and so people would always come to me for advice or help them to find a teacher. And the other thing was, being a private teacher myself, I often was asked to make book recommendations for parents or neighbors, for anybody. So this is what I decided to do, just trying to consolidate all my knowledge with what I have so far and put it on the homepage and basically tell people to visit my homepage
So
if they want to have more information.
We've got books on there specifically for learning languages.
Mostly for learning languages, but also I make book recommendations for general books, like, you know, Pulitzer Prize winner like 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I mean, anything that I find interesting or that I find worth reading, yeah.
Okay, and there's teachers on there. I can find a teacher for a language.
Yeah.
I can find a book.
Right. Interesting links. I put some language links on there as well.
Okay, and quotes.
Yeah, I do love quotes because I love philosophy, and I guess it's important to me. Yeah.
Okay. So what sort of quotes can we expect there?
Schopenhauer. Who else have I put on there? Schopenhauer.
Oscar Wilde is fairly prominent.
Oh yes, I started off with Oscar Wilde because I do love his writing, and I do recommend the book Dorian Gray, the picture of Dorian Gray, and that's who I started off with. And of course,
So the difference between the two sites, just to explain this, is if you're thinking of coming to Germany, you want to know how to get here, you want to know where to live, how to find a job. That's allthingsgerman.net. And if you're here, you want to know how to learn a language.
Yeah, any kind.
What? German, English.
Yeah, German. Everything is included.
Or you're here on a placement. You want to teach English, or you've got to teach English in a school, and you need resources. That's another thing.
Right.
That the site will be useful for. That's then pension-sprachschule.de. Okay. So how was the podcast? How did you enjoy making the podcast?
Oh, I loved it. It's a lot of fun. I mean, of course, you know, one has to prepare and make sure not to trip and stuff like that. But it's really a lot of fun. I mean, just kind of like exploring it. It's kind of like taking a walk in kindergarten and seeing things with a different light and talking about it. You know.
Okay, so we'll do another one.
We'll do another podcast, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Actually, when? Mondays is always good for
Mondays is always good. We'll see what we do. We'll see what we do about Monday podcast.
Okay.
Okay?
That sounds like a good title, actually. The Monday podcast.
I shall go and see if the domain's available. Okay.
All right, then we have come to the end of the line. There's another thing that will tell us. So that's the end.
That's the end. We're going home now. Okay. We say
right.
bye.
Then see you around, okay?
And subscribe to the podcast.
Yep.
Okay, bye.
Bye.